Like, yeah, man, dog, let's come on. We can debate about whatever, which I respect. I respect Candace for that. Now, y'all know how I am. I'm all about debating. I love debating. I literally tweeted out the other day. I said, am I the only one that likes debating, my friends? Like, I love debating, yo. I mean, I did it fucking all of high school. It took up half my life, so I guess I enjoy it. But I love the opportunity to learn, bro. Really, that's really what I like. Because that's, if you're doing debate right, that's what it is. It's an opportunity for you and everybody who's watching to learn. And these engagements with the other side, which I applaud Brie for doing, it lets us know that we have more in common than we think we do. In this particular conversation with Candace, let me once again know more about her, because Candace be dropping stuff about herself that some people don't really be catching. They don't really catch it. And it's like, it's very telling about the person that Candace is. And it makes me almost empathize with her, even though I don't like a lot of the shit she says. And I am highly critical of a lot of stuff she says. But I understand her a little bit more every time she has an interview with the other side. So I want to hear this part of the clip. We want to talk about it.
In the media's eyes when he was running in 2016. And yet we do find ourselves allied in the belief that people in America should be able to criticize the actions of foreign governments without having their entire livelihoods risked. This is not normal. And yet there are so many people who know, like I know and like you know, that if you are in media, you got to be careful talking about Israel. Why is that?
Yeah, it really is the one true red line. And I think you experience that as being part of a media organization that I think rightly really prioritized and focused on various threats to free speech in various different contexts and across the political spectrum. But it really does feel like free speech except for when it comes to Israel, progressive except for when it comes to Palestine. I mean, there is this Palestine-sized hole or exception in a lot of people's principled stance against various issues. And I say progressive except for Palestine because there are similarly people on the left who say that they care about various groups, who say that they are anti-war, but who very similarly will look the other way or frankly become very oppositional when suddenly the people that we're talking about who are being under siege in a conflict are in fact Palestinian.
Yeah, and it's particularly interesting to see the way the media reports on these incidents, and I see it already in how they're speaking about your firing because they don't actually say what it is that you said that was controversial. I saw this when I left the Daily Wire. Andrew Klavan does this episode. He's like, she was saying things in a way, but he can't actually point to what I said because actually there was something that I said that was controversial. Unless you view a certain race to be just above critique, really is what it is. If you view a certain race to be above critique. And I found that when I was being lied upon by a man named Rabbi Barclay. I mean, he lied so badly about me that PJ Media wound up taking the article down after I interviewed him because I was genuinely curious. Like, how could you say you're a rabbi, you're supposed to be a leader in your community, and you're publishing lies about things that I never said. And when he spoke to me, he was very honest. And I realized, okay, he's actually just a racial supremacist. He's telling me that he believes that, if Jewish blood is shed, it does in fact matter more.
So let me just be clear. Technically speaking, she's actually academically speaking, she's using the word race wrong. There's a level of supremacy, but in this particular case, it would be Zionist supremacy, in my opinion, because one, Zionists don't care if Jewish blood is spilled if they're not Zionists. So we have to remember that. So words are important, and the understanding and how people receive those words are just as important. So that I want to clarify that. But I understand what she's trying to say. I understand her point. There's an element of supremacy that no one wants to talk about because back, or at least at one point, you would get considered an anti-Semite, which is insane. Because it's like, nah, bro, like, you do care if Israeli, we literally just watched an operation in Rafah where to rescue 4 hostages, which, by the way, they ended up killing 4 of their own in total to get them. But an operation where to rescue 4 hostages, you massacred 200 Palestinians. And you're like, yep, totally worth it. How is that mathing? Unless you're saying that inherently those Israeli lives are exponentially more valuable as human beings than these Palestinian lives. So yeah, even though race isn't the word, because you have to remember it's important to point this out. I'm not just focusing on that part because it's like, oh, I'm just nitpicking. It's important to remember Black and brown, African specifically, Jewish people are not treated the same by Zionists or even all Ashkenazi or white Jews. They were sterilized en masse. They get turned away. They get treated like trash. Racism is literally, I'm sure y'all seen that viral video of that woman walking around. I'm proud to be racist. Literally trying to advocate for the removal of all African Jews, even though the doctrine says in Israel, if you're Jewish and you come home, that's your citizenship. You got it. And they're trying to kick. So you know what I'm saying? Like you can't call all like you can't say it's racial supremacy. It's not a racial supremacy issue. Like connected to the Judaism aspect. Like it's not that, or the Judaism identity. It is an ethnicity thing, but specifically it is a ideology. It's an ideological supremacy. We believe in this principle, this doctrine, and therefore we are superior. Because if you don't believe in that as a Jew, you already get looked at differently. Glenn Greenwald was talking about that during his Tucker Carlson interview. He's like, yeah, we don't get no exception to that. We can't. If anything, once again, probably because if you're Jewish and you criticize, you get attacked more. Like if you're Black and you criticize Kamala, you get attacked by liberals more. Okay. So you can't call that a racial supremacy issue. It's not a racial thing. That's a Zionist thing. It's an ideological issue. And there is an element of supremacy. And some people can say and do whatever they want without, they can say and do whatever they want with impunity, as long as they say, yeah, but y'all didn't see all this AIPAC money I just got? Oh, well, you should have said so. I didn't know you were getting money from AIPAC. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Welcome to the club. Code Yarmulke. Let's hear Brie's response.
When it is Jewish history, it matters more. And I appreciated his honesty, and I could see why we were going to be on the wrong side of this issue, because I don't believe in racial supremacy, whether it's coming from BLM leaders talking about their list of demands for white people. I don't believe in racial supremacy if it's white people, and I certainly am not going to accept.
I don't believe in racial supremacy, but also saying the BLM leaders, because that's like a very generalized thing. It's just like getting into the weeds, but BLM, the 501c4 organization that screwed their own people, and BLM organizations that organize on the ground, those are two different things. And the BLM leaders, quote unquote, that she's referring to, that were on the ground that are demanding things from white people, is like, we are demanding that we don't get killed by cops. Like, it's not supremacy. That's just survival. I don't agree with racial supremacy. And I do agree with her about white supremacy, obviously, but like there are levels to this. And that's where I would like to see Candace evolve more, because she's still coming out of that limited hangout of, like, I hate to call Candace a DEI hire, but effectively for TP USA, she was definitely a DEI hire. That it was the whole point of her being there. And you could tell by the issue that she was limited to talk about when she was at TP USA, which was always about race. That was what they do. TP USA. The ironic thing about fucking Charlie Kirk complaining about DEI more than anybody else is this motherfucker is the king of the DEI hire. I've never seen anyone do more DEI hires in such a short period of time. That's a different conversation for a different day. But that's where I want Candace to begin to open her eyes a little bit more. And I think now that she is out of that Zionist limited hangout, and her future is now is on the line, if you will, right? How she goes forward with the way that she's perceiving this information is a big deal, because you just left Daily Wire. It's going to be interesting to see how you're damn sure not going to TP USA again. Daily Wire is like the next biggest thing, or at least on par. So you're kind of like out there by yourself now. So you got to shape who we got. We're going to be finding out, and this was a first step, like this firing and the way she is handling this issue with Israel and Palestine. I feel like this is the first step into us finding out finally exactly who Candace Owens is. Not Candace Owens, who became an Obama girl because she thought it was popular to be black and be pro-Obama, or the Candace Owens who then flipped her website to being pro-Bernie because she saw how popular it was to be leftist and pro-Bernie, and then immediately flipped it to be pro-Trump because she saw how you could be even more popular if you're black and pro-Trump, or the TPUSA, who's a right-wing social justice warrior who's only talking about black people, or the Ben Shapiro, like we're going to find out who Candace Owens is finally. And it's going to be very interesting to see. But I want to hear Brie's response.
If it's Jewish people, that's not something that anyone should accept.
Well, it'll come as no surprise to you, Candace, that I feel differently about when we can get more specific about your qualms with BLM. But with respect to Israel, I do think that what has become increasingly clear to people is that the ideology that sort of justifies a Jewish state created in the middle of an Arab land really requires a commitment to basically expelling, ethnically cleansing, and even committing what has been described by the ICJ as a plausible genocide against a population so that there can be a Jewish majority. And I know that's a sort of uncomfortable fact, but it's one that I think many people are coming to when you start to question why it is that Israel has made the choice to treat 5 million people who are in constructively occupied territory in both the West Bank and Gaza as second-class citizens for years and years, not to mention the 20% of Israel's population who are subject to about 60 different laws that discriminate against them in terms of housing, employment, and in other kinds of arenas. And it all comes down to when you start to listen to people explain why they think it's acceptable to, for example, kill over 270 Palestinians and murder so many children the way we saw just a few days ago in Gaza to rescue 3 hostages. You have people very openly saying it's justified. It would have been justified to kill 500, 1,000 Palestinians if it meant getting 3 hostages back. And
mind you, they got 3 hostages back. They killed 3 of. I guess it's also where Zionist lies, which we know they don't really care about those. But they killed 3. What they lost a soldier and lost 3 Israeli hostages to get those 3 hostages back. So like, not only was it worth Palestinian lives, but like it was also worth Israeli lives. They're like, yeah, man, but you know, those hostages might have told a different story, so we had to get rid of them. But we know that's how they do. It was about the narrative more than anything. I want to fast forward a little bit here. I got to go to a critique of Candace.
As soon as I was saying this is equal to me, it's like supremacy, I don't know a single person who supremacy, I don't know a single person who was not horrified by what happened on October 7th, who obviously wants every hostage to be returned because we value the lives of the innocent, full stop. It doesn't matter to me if that's an innocent Palestinian life or whether it's an innocent Israeli life. And as soon as I was saying this is equal to me, suddenly all of these attacks started. And I really did feel like what was happening after October 7th is very reminiscent to me of what was happening after 9/11 and growing up in the 9/11. And I look back on that time because I realized that there was this sort of media insistence. We didn't have social media. We didn't have other perspectives being given to us. There really was no sense of an independent media. But I look back on that and I realized I was almost brainwashed to believe that Muslim life had no worth. And thinking about how scared I was every time I saw a Muslim at, wherever I was, whether it was an airport, anywhere. And I actually believe that the media in America was successful in dehumanizing Muslims. I'm not a little girl anymore.
She's right.
Okay, I'm an adult. I am.
So that was one. So remember what I was saying? We're finding out who Candace is now. At TPUSA, she's not admitting that. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. She's not admitting that. Even if she believed that, she would not admit it. She's like, yeah, I was brainwashed. I was propagandized. Specifically by concern, because that's who was in charge. It was the Bush administration. Yeah, liberals too, but it was the Bush administration, her side, right, that was doing the brainwashing. And she fell for it. And she had a warped perception of a specific demographic because of it. And I'm gonna let her continue, but we gonna address this though.
Woman, I'm a mother, which is the most important thing. And I just remember after October 7th, I was very due to give birth, looking on Twitter and seeing these children. These children happen to have the same complexion as my daughter because I have a mixed child, being blown up, and then having people tell me that I shouldn't care about that. And I said to myself, okay, I totally understand people wanting to have their hostages returned. I can totally understand people wanting to make sure that their family is safe. But what I cannot understand is how you think you are a good person when you devalue the life of a child. You are a monster. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're an American commentator. I don't care if you're a rich billionaire. I don't care if you're the average person on the street. When you applaud one hostage being returned, and yet you know thousands of people who are similarly innocent were killed in the process, and you go, oh, well, too bad, you become a monster. And I know that there are so many people who agree with me in media who are scared to say that because they are fearful of having their jobs. They are fearful of losing their jobs, rather. So can you speak to exactly how you found out you were being...
So, ladies and gentlemen, y'all don't find that a little bit ironic? This is what I mean when we just learned a lot. This is not the first time that Candace has revealed the way she formulates her opinions and what moves her. Candace is the type of person that is extremely experiential, and she is extremely emotionally invested. Her logic is not based in logic necessarily. It is definitely emotional and experiential first, then logic to work backwards from the conclusion that she had already made. This is the second time where I can distinctively remember Candace coming out and being on the right side of an issue because of somebody close to her and the negative impact that it had or the negative experience that they had. For example, some of you all may not know, Candace Owens is actually really good when it comes to, and she's an activist actually. She would consider herself to be an activist when it comes to the issue of the crime, the crime bill, private prison industry, the privatization of the private prison industry. You know why? Because I believe it was her brother or her cousin who fell victim to that industry. So even though she was wrong on all these issues about race, definitely about politics, all of a sudden she's having this moment of clarity specifically about the private prison industry. I was like, what? How do you can't get all that shit wrong and then get this right? That doesn't make any sense. So now, fast forward, right? Being a parent, for those of you who are parents, y'all know, like, having your first kid will change you. Even if you're very empathetic and you care about kids, you care, like, having your first kid just changed you, just gives you a lot of perspective. And you begin to always think about, damn, what if my kid would go through this? In this particular case, this is the same Candace who's like, my race shouldn't matter. My race doesn't matter. My race is this is the same Candace, y'all. It's TPUSA Candace. She's kind of stood on that. And all of a sudden, it's like, I'm looking at these kids that are being bombed that are the same skin complexion as my kid. I have a kid, and I can't imagine being in that situation as a mother now. I'm horrified by this. I can't support this, like, because she just had a kid. She's like, it's one thing when you can, I'm not gonna say, yeah, no, you can sell yourself out. It's easier to sell yourself out because you can if you can just look in the mirror, you already done committed to the grift anyway. But your kid, you like, that's a different conversation. Your kid can face consequences from the world that you are living in for things that are not in their control, like the way that they look and people's perception of them. Yeah, Candace, that's what it means to be Black. That's what we've been trying to tell you. You know that you are finally arriving to the party, Candace. You are finally beginning to see that, yes, white people, or people in general, but white people in a lot of cases, the way the world works is that they are conditioned to see certain people as being less valuable and more expendable. Now, yeah, you're famous, but you just went. We know the reason that you were valuable to TPUSA is because you were, in fact, a DEI hire. That's facts. Probably the same for Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire. Yeah, you were valuable from that regard, but you were less valuable. Like, no, we don't got to keep this black girl around for her to talk about brown people. We didn't bring a black girl on this network for her to be on the side of the oppressed. That's not why Ben Shapiro's and Charlie Kirk's bring on the Candace Owenses of the world. Right? And she, after being a mom, after looking at her kid and realize, oh shit, my kid is black. You know, if you have black, you're like, I'm black. Yeah, I mean, my dad don't look like me. I would be surprised. My son looks like I did whenever, because I was white when I was a baby. But my point is like, I'm black. I don't get to point at my family lineage and be like, oh, look at that side of my family. No, it's not how it works. I'm black. It's how it works. And Candace sees it. It's not, I'm not looking at Candace anymore. I'm looking at my kid. And she's empathizing experientially. And now her logic is changed. Like, hold up, I can't support this shit. This is insane. Yeah, Candace. And now all the excuses because you know what they're doing, they're giving out these excuses to justify the genocide. Candace don't want to hear that shit. She's like, no, because all you're doing is giving excuses to justify the devaluation of those lives because of their religion or their skin complexion or their ethnicity. Your excuses are irrelevant to me because we know why you're doing it. And it's not like Candace is obviously not like jumping on the pro-Hamas or October 7th bandwagon, but she doesn't focus on that. She doesn't focus on the reaction to the oppression, the reaction to the discrimination, the reaction to the apartheid. She's like, yeah, well, you know, okay, October 7th was bad. You know, innocent lives are innocent lives. But she focuses more on the oppressor than the reactions of the oppressed. So that's what I mean by we are now going to start to find out who can. Is she gonna mess up? We're gonna be a lot of stuff that you disagree with. Oh, certainly. But what I'm saying is we're gonna find out who she actually is. Because without Charlie Kirk in her ear, without Ben Shapiro in her ear, without the pressures that come with being the DEI hire for those type of organizations, now it is strictly her experiential empathy and the facts, you know, as she knows them to be. Because there's no way that she could say something like that and not get the irony. Like, damn, yeah, man, I've actually been conditioned to see Muslims as less than human, to fear them, to stereotype them, to generalize. Yeah, Candace, it's like, you mean like you do with black people all the time? Yeah. That's what we've been trying to tell you. Let me get some of these super chats real quick. Oh, let me go ahead and put my glasses on. I'm crazy, bro. I don't know why I would do that to myself. Old Crow said, it kills me when they say how Israel is our greatest allies. All the years I spent in the Middle East, Israel never was involved, even in air operations. How are they our greatest allies? I will say, as somebody who was in the military, sometimes Israel a lot of the times is involved, but it's unofficial. They have to keep the distance officially. So they'll coordinate with senior military leaders, exchanging intelligence, etc., and even sending some soldiers. but those soldiers will be in ACUs, like American uniforms. Like I was in an intelligence brigade where that actually was a thing. So, but get your point. Sparky, maybe I should return Brianna's calls. What? Oh, that's funny. Colin, thanks for the super chat, man. It's funny that Candace, because of her faith, is able to sympathize with Palestinians, but her faith cannot sympathize for Black people in this country or even in Israel. Has Candace said anything about sterilized Ethiopian Jews? I can guarantee Candace doesn't even know about that. Because of that conversation that we had a second ago about race, she doesn't even understand, like, no, there's racism within Zionism. There's racism within Judaism. So it ain't about racial supremacy necessarily, but I'll give her some leeway for now because she's still trying to understand all this new feeling of empathy for people who are being portrayed as barbaric and villainous and adversarial because of their race. She's still trying to, understand that emotion for the first time. And I could see that it's genuine. Like she's like, I can't believe I fell for this. You know what? Hey, man, look, it ain't never too late to come back home, Candace. It ain't never too late to come back home. It ain't never too late. And you can truly be independent. Hey, look, man, you can still hate on Kamala. That shit fun. Us Black leftists love hating on fucking coons. I mean, I don't know what else to call them. We love it. You can come and join us. Sparky, thank you for the super chat. In my life, race shifted from just Black, white, or East Asian to include ethnicities in order to further divide us. No, ethnicities are actually used. So I can see why you would think that, but that's actually not the case. Only because I literally studied why we have that particular distinction. And the reason why is because people were under the belief that, like, for example, you can't have racism in Brazil or Colombia. And like, why? Because they're all Latino. So I would know that's not. No, there's colorism and racism there too. What do you mean? It actually, the exclusion of ethnicity specifically. Ethnicity is more like a cultural link that you might have to a region or a group of people. And trying to say, oh, we're Latinos, so we don't have that. Like, that is an attempt to ignore the problems in a place like Venezuela, for example, where indigenous, like before Hugo Chavez and Maduro took over, indigenous people and Black people and mestizos in Venezuela were significantly oppressed. In Colombia, same thing, right? Hell, in Argentina, the indigenous and Black were damn near wiped out. And they say, no, we don't got that problem here. Why? Because we're Latino. We don't have racism. Like, nah, they have colorism. Sometimes it bleeds into racism. So, like, it's important to acknowledge that just because we might have the same ethnicity, right? So, for example, if you are Bayesian, that just means you're from the country of Barbados. Your family from the country of Barbados. Y'all don't think there's racism in Barbados? There's a shitload of colorism and racism in Barbados because they have same thing in Trinidad. There's the Desi dominant side, then there's the African dominant side, and there's even the indigenous side, and there's the mixed side. So, like, that's why it's important to understand the difference between the two, ethnicity and race. Colin, you said, but with her kids, they will be okay more or less because they're wealthy. Yeah, yes and no. Yeah, they'll be okay. Like they're not gonna suffer. But just because, money can't always protect you from the perspective of society, right? I mean, shit, to some degree, Candace figure it out herself. Like, and I think she has a daughter, so there's that. So, like, yeah, they'll be protected to some degree, and they'll live a lovely life. But it's like Vinny from who plays for Real Madrid, the Brazilian. He sued the people that were basically terrorizing him for being Black. He won, by the way. Like, he, you know, being a black man, it's hard to do what you do at a professional level, enjoy yourself, without the constant anxiety, with constant anxiety of like knowing that people's perspective of you that has nothing to do with your performance actually can have an outcome on your career, professional life, your social life, et cetera, or your life, your actual life, your safety, because we know like how, like in Vinny's case, for example, it can get dangerous in Europe for black football players, for black soccer players, right? It can get dangerous. Hell, y'all remember Thabo Sefolosha from the NBA? He's half black, half Swiss. This man's career was ended because the cops beat the shit out of him and broke his leg. And it was the wrong house. You get what I'm saying? Like, bullets don't really check your bank account before they kill you. You feel me? So like that, there's always that one-off chance that you could be that your kid could be that victim. So Sparky said, men change the most when they have a daughter. I could believe that. My brother changed a lot when he had a daughter. In 2022, I saw an Azov kid that looked like my son. Then I knew Biden would push for the draft. Oh, well, shit. You call that one. They're doing an automatic draft now, which is crazy. But yeah, we're gonna cover this a little bit more and we're gonna move on. But I definitely want to go over this last part of something Candace said, just to kind of reinforce what we were just talking about.
And supporting, because look, 20% of the population is Arab and we all live peacefully, and isn't that wonderful? But also to be making the argument that we can't have any more Palestinians because they're inherently violent, they're inherently regressive, they will ruin our society if they come into the country.
Well, that's what I'm speaking to when I talk about this dehumanization of Palestinians that's happening right now in the media. It's disgusting. And like I said, you know, I would say I'm agnostic on the issue. I want to learn more, which is why I'm trying to have a debate with somebody who is, you know, radically pro-Zionist. I don't have an issue with the fact that you're radically pro-Zionist. What I have an issue with is that you speak down to people as if you are a superior and you won't debate your ideas, right?
That's what we've been trying to tell you, Candace. That's you hear I don't even, and I know like now she's like, yeah, I'll debate anybody. Yeah, like this ain't the Candace from, once again, this is not the Candace from TPUSA. If Candace debated anybody on racial issues back in the day, it was a very controlled environment. It was somebody like a liberal that would not actually argue the points correctly, would not dissect her arguments or her fallacious logic. It wouldn't be somebody like Briahna Joy Gray or myself or my guy Colin, educator in his own right. Like it would be some liberal who would actually probably hurt an argument when it comes to the criminal justice system or the way that black people are perceived, or like, no, it wouldn't be somebody who understands, like, you cannot generalize BLM, for example. I am one of those people who often criticize BLM, the 501c4 nonprofit organization that I knew was exploiting black people in order to drive people into Joe Biden's arms. I knew that. I was one of the ones who talked about it. Same with Antifa. I got a lot of flack from like, y'all know this is like a Joe Biden front company, basically. That's why they disappeared whenever Biden got in office. Like, boy, hold on. I definitely just checked my calendar and it turns out fascism is actually still on the agenda for the establishment. It has not gone anywhere. Yet Antifa disappeared. So there's a distinction from, I mean, hell, you can look at, I don't know, the humane society, for example. The big corporation is shit, but the work that the local organizations do is real. And there is a distinction to be made if you are willing to make that distinction. And if you were in Candace's position as she was with TPUSA and Ben, she wasn't willing to make those distinctions because it was inconvenient. It was inconvenient for the brand. It was too nuanced. It was the motive of her being there was to be the DEI hire to push tropes. Because if a black person says it, you're brave, right? Hell, and to be honest, TPUSA haven't really been able to find anybody to push the grift as good as Candace was able to. I'll tell you that. They've been trying. They go get gay black guys and all kinds of. They get a lot of gay black dudes. Actually, it's kind of weird. They're really obsessed with gay black dudes and pushing. I don't know why. Like it's a specific thing, but it's not really any different than I guess like liberals. It's kind of bizarre, but whatever. But it was the people that she was working for. They probably did disallow her to some degree, but she at least convinced herself that it was not necessary to traverse the nuance. Like, nah, you gotta have that conversation if we're going to be honest. Like, don't tell like this trick on Twitter, which I'll pull up the tweet later, who was talking about, oh, I don't hate black people. I hate black culture because black culture is antithetical to my Christian belief. I'm like, hold up, what? Bro, what the fuck does that even mean? And she kind of tries to defend herself in the comments because, now it's cool. The cool thing on the social justice warrior of right is to try to be edgy by saying you don't like black people. Like, bitch, we already knew y'all didn't like black people. I don't know why people are getting famous for saying that. Like, we didn't know y'all. Like, we already know who y'all are. But whatever. But she came out in the comments and said, no, it's like there is just a bunch of degeneracy. I'm like, bro, you do know white people are literally American white people specifically are historically degenerate. Historically. In the 60s and the 70s, when most American black people were extremely conservative, socially, religiously, and politically, we're doing much better economically. We're staunchly anti-drug, straight and narrow. White people, 60s and 70s, y'all out here trying every damn drug known to man. Y'all literally were inventing drugs to do. It was known. Well, you get what I'm saying, y'all. Like, y'all got Black Panthers and shit training people how to defeat the community, and like, but what we know is like they literally, that's a whole thing. Like, yeah, man, I did a lot of drugs in the 60s, man. The 60s and 70s were crazy, dog. It was a well-known thing. That's what rock and roll and all that. Like, yeah, we gonna act like that didn't happen, and then they'll look at you and be like, oh, but hip hop, man, that's like, okay, hip hop is actually a reflection of an environment that people were forced into by governmental policies. That it's not the same thing. Now it got weaponized and corporatized, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But my point is, this girl trying to pretend like, no, that's what black. I'm like, no. We're not doing this. We're not doing it. You can't sit here and try to you can't tell black people what black culture is. Somebody said, she made a comment about hunting, for example. I was like, you do know, because somebody, a black hunter posted his videos, and she's like, oh, like black people are out there hunting all the time. Bro, black people in the South and in the Midwest hunt they ass off. Killer Mike talks about it all the time, actually. It is a big deal for black people in the South to hunt and fish. I don't like hunting and fishing. I don't like because I like animals too much. But I'm allergic to fish. But they love hunting. That is a big ass deal for black people. One of my friends is literally he's like a professional fisher, like a kayaking fish, like what is it called? Fly fishing or whatever the hell. He's a professional. And he gets sponsorships for hunting. Like that's what he's one of the blackest people I know. Like outside of that, he's just running the mill average American black guy. But that's what his career is. I know black people that literally can hunt with bow and arrows, bro. I know several of them actually. But because you don't know any of them, you're like, no, that's white people culture. No, not really. If you want to talk about black culture, like black culture is jazz. That's us. Rock and roll, technically, is that's us. Fiscal conservatism. Whenever white people in the white-owned banks were throwing and blowing money in the roaring 20s, black banks, black Wall Streets were practicing conservative economic and investment policies, which is how they survived the roaring 20s, and FDR punished them by closing them anyway. Community building, that's black culture. In fact, all the elements of black culture were targeted and destroyed with government policies to counter. Like, because it was too much. Like, no, we can't have them doing this shit. This is a recipe. I'm looking at black culture. Black culture is a recipe for success. We gotta get that shit out of here. That was black culture. Where did crack cocaine come from? You can't talk about crack until you talk about cocaine, which is where crack cocaine comes from. Who is doing the coke? Because it won't black people, because black people couldn't afford it. How did it get into the communities? Where did it come from? Coke was seen as a white rich man's drug, degeneracy. Crack was seen as a poor black people's drug. You feel me? So my point is that I hope that Candace understands and begins to see, like, yeah, bro, everything you're saying about Palestinians is true, and you should apply that level of empathy and logic. You should reverse engineer that logic and apply it to the black people that you're always criticizing. And I'm not even saying that black people are free from criticism, because we have our own criticism within our community. I have a lot of beef with black people. Just, for example, the way that American, who I like to affectionately refer to as the family reunion black people, usually of the South, they got constant and regular beef with the diaspora. Then you have the elite black people, usually part of the family reunion black, but they don't even like their relatives a lot of the time. You have the academic scholars, like the Winston-Salem, if you're familiar with that area, like parts of Durham in North Carolina, Berkeley in California. Like, there are elitist blacks that don't like anybody. Then you got the Africans who got their beef with, when they moved to the States, you got the Caribbeans who will sometimes isolate, but then other times they get discriminated against, which is what caused them to isolate. Like, we got our own problems. We do. And we have genuine criticisms of our community and stuff that are stopping us from overcoming the oppression, the oppression from the government, but the setbacks that have happened over the years. We can't get past it because of problems in our own community. And those are genuine criticisms to be had. But, like, don't be blaming us for cops that are trained by the IDF killing us in the street during traffic stops. Don't do that. Like, that shit, because now you're cheering on and defending the same government that you're criticizing in this very moment over how, because you're just like, oh, they're paid off by Israel, they're paid off by Ukraine, and these neo-Nazis, they're paid off by, and Candace will acknowledge that. So now you can't, I'm consistent on this. Like, whenever I have to criticize somebody for something, I'm not going to turn around and pretend like all of a sudden the influences that they were under disappear because they say something I like. Like, especially when it comes to foreign policy or a major issue. Just because you say something I like or that I kind of agree with doesn't mean that those influences aren't there. It probably means you're not, because like Biden criticized Netanyahu. Does that mean he's anti-Israel? No. It does not mean that at all. It just means that he's trying to pander. There's an ulterior motive. But like, I'm anti-CIA, anti-FBI, anti-NSA, anti-intelligence community, right? I am very much so anti-cop. Y'all know that. Why? Because the cops work for the same people that... We're not the cops enforcing the curfews, the illegal curfews during protests, during COVID. The illegal curfews, because one, they were trying to shut down protests, but two, they were just enforcing curfews because COVID. Like, they were just like, yeah, man, you can't be on the street. Why? COVID, I guess. I'm like, that's illegal, right? You can't do that. The same cops that you're cheering on, because you know Candace loves talking about George Floyd. You defending those cops, pretend like George Floyd is like this evil human being. Yeah, even if he did commit a crime at some point in the past, which is like, okay, that means he deserves to die. That's not how that works. There's a whole due process for that. Right? Those same cops will turn around and they're going to be ones taking your guns. They're going to be the ones throwing your kid in jail. They're going to be the ones who shoot. Y'all got to remember, you know, Candace has a daughter. Y'all remember they shot Philando Castile and with his daughter in the car, his daughter and girl in the car. So I hope that going forward that Candace thinks about this type of stuff, because she could be an ally. She's an ally in this particular movement, right? And it could be momentum shifting when it comes to the energy behind important issues domestically as well, if she allows it to be. And I also want to say, before we move on to the next topic, I am very, very happy and proud of Brie for being willing to go on to Candace's show without the fear of judgment, right, from her leftist companions, without like worried about being attacked for talking to Candace, without being willing to hear disagreement, something that she would disagree with from Candace, and not going on a tangent about it because she knows what, like, they're focused on the topic, because it helps to further reinforce the standard that, like, on issues where our interests converge and we agree, we can focus on that and we can talk about it and we can educate people on it. We don't have to have identical beliefs. I don't have identical beliefs with anybody that I know, guys. I don't. So me having once again, I would rather talk to somebody on the right that I know that I have genuine disagreements with, but we agree on these one or two very, very important issues, than talk to somebody on the left who I know is bullshitting. They pretend like they agree on certain issues, but in reality, they're grifters. Right? We see a lot of that. People are willing to engage and boost and signal boost grifters on the left because the perception is better for them. Right? But then, and it's like, well, you do know, like, this person has said this, and this. They're inconsistent. They've literally switched up every main, they've switched up on any significant issue that they talked about over the last 2 or 3 months at the convenience of the grift. Yeah, but the perception is, right, that they're acceptable. They're part of the limited hangout. And they're okay with doing that, but wouldn't be okay with talking to somebody like Candace Owens on an issue they agree with, which I feel like is toxic and it's immature and it's unproductive. We need to be able to have these conversations because, once again, like what Candace said in the interview, if you don't want to talk about the issue or debate an issue that you disagree with that person, right, then you don't actually believe in that issue, or you don't know enough about it, or you're scared that you're going to be exposed and going to be educated, right? There's a difference between being exposed and educated. You're only exposed if you had no intention on being educated or moving on that issue, right? If you're being educated means, oh, that's cool, I learned something new today. I'm gonna put that in the old memory bank. We might go ahead and take that going forward and see how I feel about it, see if it changes my mind. That's why it's important to have these conversations. You gotta be willing to challenge yourself, to be okay with being challenged on your ideas, and to not give a fuck about the perception of you talking to somebody.